Welcome to the Spinning Our Gears podcast. Before we begin, a quick reminder. All views, issues, and opinions are solely those of the hosts and their guests and do not reflect the opinions or positions of any department, agency, city, county, municipality, state, or country, or any other organization. This show is rated E for explicit. Listening and viewer discretion is highly advised. Spinning Our Gears is a law enforcement leadership and mental health podcast. We confront the issues and conversations others are afraid to deal with: leadership failures, the culture within law enforcement, accountability, and the realities of life on and off the job. You can find us on YouTube, all of the major podcasting platforms and social media outlets, as well as online at spinningourgears.com. And now, without further fanfare, this is the Spinning Our Gears podcast.
Well, what is going on, Warriors, and welcome back to another episode of the Spinning Our Gears podcast, coming to you on an amazing morning. I think we have something lined up for you guys that you're really going to enjoy. We have an administrator of a police department here that I happen to know, have a little bit of background with, and I think you guys, it's going to be a nice, refreshing change of pace as opposed to just dragging people through the mud and having issues with law enforcement leaders, because this guy, he knows what he's talking about, he knows what he's doing. Davis, what is going on, partner?
Good morning, everybody.
So a little bit of the backstory here. How I came in contact with Davis is I happened to I put in for a position with the department, and I don't think Davis knows this yet, but he actually beat me out for that position within that department. And then what that led me to was I put in for a position with another department. It happened to be his old department, and I was given a conditional offer to take that position. Being the person that I am, and I kind of being a little bit hesitant, I sat back and I opened up my social Rolodex, and I found someone that I knew that knew him, and I reached out to him and asked him his opinions on what was going on with that previous department and if it was going to be a good decision for me to take it or not. And he was very candid. He opened up, told me some of the issues that were there, and I made the decision not to take that position. And looking back in hindsight, it was probably the right way to go. But since then, he and I have had open communication. I've been ride-alongs at his department, and all of his guys, they love him, is the thing. So you can tell a good leader and a good admin by the way the guys speak about him, and his guys and girls speak just volumes about him. So I gotta give you a pat on the back for that, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Could you give us obviously we're going to stay a little bit anonymous, but can you give us a little bit about your background and what got you into law enforcement, what got you where you're at now, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So I actually grew up in a law enforcement family. My old man just retired out of another county after like 35 years.
Okay.
Before that, I was in the United States Air Force. I was an MP there for 6 years. Got right out and started doing civilian policing. My journey to administrative work was different than everyone else in our career field, because I was basically, it's going to sound bad, but I was basically handed it with no experience whatsoever, no knowledge about how to do any of it. So I was feet to the fire first, trained with leadership, which I think helps now, because I still remember where I came from. I still remember what it's like. I still work the road with the guys all the time because I'm so young. But after that, it's just been kind of honing the craft, man, honing the leadership craft. I've finished up my master's degree here in the last 2 years. So it's just about education now and then supporting my people.
And, you talked about getting thrown to the fire, that you were, kind of in charge or at least part of an admin group. That was for a smaller town, correct?
Yeah. It was a 4-officer department, including the chief.
And kind of describe some of the struggles that you faced with that. I know you've done some other interviews that I've listened to, but kind of give our audience some of the headaches that you really had to take on when dealing with that.
I mean, the worst by far, if you ask any administrator what the problem is, it's always dealing with personnel, right? Like, that's the hardest part, is learning that stuff. And I'll tell you, in the HR world, if you don't do any classwork, you don't know any of those federal regulations or laws, then it's tough, right? It's a tough world to navigate with literally like not much guidance. Now again, thankfully I worked in a good county. I had a really good sheriff. But the thing is what I noticed then is that there's a lot of law enforcement leaders out there that do the, I don't know, the faux pas leadership. Like, you know, when somebody comes in and takes this role, or whether they're handed the role, or whether they, you know, get promoted, or whatever the case may be. I found out, man, there's a lot of law enforcement leadership out there that are like that. Oh yeah, we'll definitely help you. And then, you know, if you just watch what they're doing, you'll realize that they're just horrible fucking people, and they're in it for the wrong reason, and they're basically looking to make alliances all the time, so that if they get in hot water, you know, they got a way to back out of it. And that was the other part, was trying to listen to X amount of chiefs telling me what I needed to do, because you know, I needed to do it this way because this is the way it's always done, and you need to go to this class. Well, you know, those first couple of years, I did that. I went to the class they told me, and I'll tell you, I hated every fucking one of them. I hated the conferences that I went to. I hated the dick measuring contest. You know, no one ever took my small agency seriously, even though I was doing the same job they were doing, just with less people and less resources. So, you know, it took me like 4 years to realize that I can just do what I want because I'm in charge now. And you know, that's when I made
it's my boat.
You know, I had so many people telling me how I needed to be a chief and how I needed to be an admin, and it did. You know, you look up to these guys, and you know they tell you they got 20, 30 years in, and it's hard for you to like want to make a name for yourself and want to do the right thing when you got people who have already, you know, what's the phrase, that, you know, fear an old man in this job, in a young man's job, you know, telling you this is how it needs to be done. But the part of my brain, you know, from like the military and like seeing what my old man was like, I was like, this is contradicting everything I've seen.
Yeah. Well, I want to get
4 years.
I want to get into the, I guess the classes and the meetings and stuff here in a second. But you had mentioned one of the things you talked about was the fact that the other leaders are constantly trying to make alliances, and they're trying to kind of position themselves a little bit higher so they have that fallback. It's kind of that imposter's syndrome that's going on. You were dealing with that not just from the law enforcement world, you were dealing with that from your bosses as well, right?
Yeah, that city that we were talking about was just an absolute swamp. You know, so I was getting it from, and honestly, I was getting it from day one, like I said, but it took me 3 to 4 years to realize that what was actually happening, right? If no one's ever been dealing with politicians and dealing with, you know, other administrators from all over and trying to like manage and navigate those things, right? Honestly, I mean, for 3 years, I just did the best I could.
Yeah.
You know, always saying yes, always trying to make everybody happy, always trying to bend over backwards, you know, even not so much for my officers, but like I would put myself, you know, to the point where my family suffered and doing all these things. And yeah, these people out there, there's a lot of them, you know, and I don't want to rain a dark cloud. I have a lot of good mentors.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of great chiefs in the state of Iowa and otherwise. You know, I have a lot of great lieutenants that I remember and master sergeants and things like that I took those little nuggets from along the way. But yeah, it's different on the civilian side, where it's like there's so many people out there trying to give you bad advice just to watch you fail, and it's hard to navigate as a very, you know, especially for me, like when I took the chief job, I'd only been a civilian cop for 2 years.
Yeah.
3 years. So like by all means, I'm still trying to figure out how to do civilian law enforcement,
right?
You know, and then we're throwing everything else on top of it, and that's a difficult thing when you got so many people trying to divide it. You know, essentially what I felt like watch me fail.
Yeah, and I want to kind of, you know, put a definition between the two, because I guess what I'm getting at is you talked about the mentors you had. You were in a good county where you had mentors to rely on. The issue is that the department that you were at was a smaller, I hate saying small department because I feel like that puts a negative cloud on the department automatically, but the issue is that you were leading it, and the people above you, when you get a smaller town and a smaller department feel, they almost expect you to be like their courier. They expect you to kind of do a lot of the things that aren't law enforcement related, and then it kind of morphs from doing law enforcement stuff to almost kind of becoming, from my experience, the Gestapo, right? We're enforcing grass in the street, and we're enforcing these little silly things that's just going to turn the community against you and is going to put you between a rock and a hard place because your bosses are asking for one thing, but your guys in the street and you know that that's not the right way to go.
Yeah, and I mean, especially you're right. In those small towns, there isn't the resources to, have a dedicated abatement officer or
Right.
an abatement employee. And then in small towns too, I've seen it. Corruption. There's more opportunities for corruption, right? Because it may start with the conversation about the neighbor's grass being an inch and a half too high. And you help them one time, and them crooked politicians, man, they'll take that inch and they'll take a mile. So
Yes.
then you're getting calls at 2 a.m. like, I need help with X, Y, Z, and you're sitting there going, well, fuck, you hold a vote in your hand, but if I don't do it, what's going to happen next?
Right.
And then you have this. Those were so many in the last couple of years, and like I said, after you get substantiated as an admin, eventually you just say, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore, and you get comfortable with it, and it's like, well, if you don't like it, we'll just talk about it in an open meeting, and then you can go fuck yourself.
Right. And when the phone calls start happening to your personal phone on your personal time as opposed to the department phone on department time, that's when you have to start asking, where are the motivations to what's being asked? Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Again,
And I think
you do it one time, man, and then that opens the door for every single time they need something, they're calling you.
And I think that was something that you had talked about before. One of the bigger problems that you had was the boundary issue, especially with your officers and some of the policies and the way that the city wanted you to do things. Can you kind of, the one thing that I remember is the gas card issue. Can you kind of describe that to the listeners as to why it was such a headache and what you were dealing with?
Yeah. So you're talking about like when the gotcha politics of why they were going to another jurisdiction to fill up with gas. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, after about a year and a half when I took over, obviously things were going well by always saying yes, right? So I had changed the way I wanted to lead, and I basically said, doesn't matter what your name is, what your last name is, what you do for a living, right? In order for this to work, everybody's got to be treated the same. That's just that's how policing needs to work. And so we did that, and obviously in a small town, you can probably expect how well that went initially, because within a couple weeks, we had popped a council member's husband for OWI, right? And clean OWI, nothing wrong with it. Well, this council member owned another business that we had, it was one of the only businesses that was open past the next, evening time when there's nothing else open in a small town.
Yeah.
And so obviously it's one of the places we get gas and we get other things. And then it got to the point where this council member would be there late at night, way past when they needed to be there. And they would start approaching the officers, like asking things that I should be asking or should be asked. And basically confronting them all the time. So I had one officer come up to me and was just like, I'm getting the two for every time I walk in this building, boss. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I can't give her any answers. She wasn't listening to me when I kept telling her to tell the officers to quit. So I said, okay, you know what? If we want to be like that, then we'll just go to another jurisdiction and fill up our squads. So I said, go ahead, right? You want to go 7 miles away, you want to fill up your cars there, that way no one bothers you. I support it. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to do, I don't care. Didn't hear boo-hoo about it for like a month. And then I walk into a council meeting and they all have these papers. And like, that's the thing, right? As a chief, like if you got a councilman that hates you and you walk in and you see him ruffling papers and just like not looking at you specifically,
Yeah.
you're about to get shot at.
Yeah.
And so like, again, I had seen that and I was like, oh, here we go. And it was immediately like, why are we spending money in another jurisdiction? Do you not care about the community?
Guys, it's Turk again. I know you thought you weren't going to see me again this episode besides the recording that I'm doing with this amazing guest, but I had to stop in one more time because did you know that if you're enjoying what you're hearing and seeing right now, if you enjoy this guy, maybe you don't, but if you enjoy good music, you can catch me on the Thin Line Rock Station on Mondays and Fridays, 12 p.m. Eastern. Once again, on the thinlinerockstation.com. First responder run radio station, amazing music, amazing DJs. Maybe not this one, but the other ones are. So definitely tune in. Check it out. Awesome stuff. ThinLineRockStation.com. But now, back to the show.
Just trying to paint us in this really bad light, like we were just spending all of our time,
Right.
7 miles away when all we were doing was getting gas. And so then, I had to come out and be like, hey, it's because, council member A sitting right next to you, since you two wanted to formulate this attack, keeps attacking my officers every time they come in there about a fucking OWI from 6 months ago. You know what I mean? And so it just painted this really bad light, and it just went down from there. And that's, you start getting attacked like that, and you start seeing these red flags over these petty things, and they don't give a shit. They will take the most minimal thing. If they hate you, or they want to cut your department, or they want to do anything nefarious, they could give two shits. They will find the most minuscule thing to come after you for, and they won't tell a word or a soul about it, and they'll try to gotcha every time.
Right. And, this is where I kind of see the shift happening. You were defending your guys and your girls in the front line, which is what a leader is supposed to do. There was another personnel issue that I don't think we should go into right now. That's kind of a separate thing. Not you, them. But it became a line drawn where you were defending your people and you had to be that middle person, but it seemed like the attack turned on you. Can you kind of describe, if you're comfortable with that, how that attack took place, kind of what the attack was, and what you had to do just to kind of cover your own butt and protect yourself?
You can go into specifics, because I'll be honest with you, when I was at that jurisdiction, I got attacked on a bi-weekly basis.
Okay.
For, things that we did or did not do all the time. So if you want to give me more specifics, I can go into it. I have no shame in my game, right?
Okay. I guess I know that there was an issue with a council member trying to buddy up to one of your officers in a way that the officer didn't want, and I know that you stuck up for that officer, and then I know there was a relationship with you and someone else from the city, and then they started going after you to the point where you had to seek help from the FOP.
Yeah, so I didn't even know the FOP existed. So again, like I said, after I realized that, and I'll tell you, for any potential leaders out there, doing the right thing will absolutely 100% paint a target on your back. Any officer, really. I mean, it sounds terrible to say, but I've noticed that the guys that sit there and do the right thing and say the right thing and say what they're feeling, and are doing it in a just manner, man, the heat that comes from a politician from that is insane. Right? It's a fiery hellscape of just hatred for doing the right thing. It's crazy. But we had council members there. What really kicked it off, man, was it was a college town. So you can imagine how that is. Small town, one or two officers out every time. Who do you think rules that town, right?
Right.
And we had a council member one night. It was end of the year. We had a rough year. Kids were just terrible, destroying people's property in town and doing stuff like that. And so, we had a bunch of people complaining, and we all came out. Even I came out with the guys. Like I said, I'm the first one to kick a door in with you. And so we came out and we just hammered it one night. And I had went home after being out for an extra 5 or 6 hours working with them. And then I got a phone call an hour later, and one of my guys said that the council member approached him and was asking why we're shutting these things down. And it's the end of the year. Don't you think you should give them a break? And I know they had to have followed me around or followed us around to see what we're doing, and they just waited till my car was gone.
Gotcha.
It was 10 minutes after that, and it was we're gonna hop right on it. We're gonna get the intel, and that happens to an extent, right? I've always had council members that would see an officer washing their car outside the PD or something like that, and stop and roundabout way ask them about what's going on, and that's expected. It's not really that big of a deal, but they were actively intervening with the officer shutting down and dealing with a bunch of college kids that ripped gutters off somebody's house. And then they had worked for the school, which is a huge conflict too. So, I brought it up, and I brought it up hard. Like I talked to my mayor, and I was like, "This is bullshit, right? Like
Yeah.
we've reached a new point where now we're like we're so comfortable we can walk up to an officer while they're actively conducting an investigation and interject yourself. Like I'm not gonna. I'm not.
What did we just see happen a couple days ago, right?
Exactly, and I'm like, this is bullshit. Like you need to fix it. And so I started doing some research online, while all this is happening too, you know, like I said, I'll be forefront. I had a relationship with a previous employee of mine, and we're still together. It wasn't, you know, I know we all make jokes about admins tagging other officers and things like that, and like I always said, I never would either, you know, and I'm a person that always says you love who you love, and I'll tell you, man, like, man. Small town too. You make a change in relationship status. You know, even if you're happier than you ever have been in your life, man. The amount of
Everybody
people that come
knows
out
it.
Everybody knows, right? And everyone picks sides. No one could be decent about it. And the worst part about it is like the people that did pick my side, right? Like they were all in a position to try to get me in trouble at work.
Right.
And so, you know, for years, you know, almost 3 years of working there under those conditions, man, I'll tell you that, like, it is a rough thing to come to work every day and wonder who's got you in a scope, where the knife's coming from, because you never know, and you know everyone's conspiring against you. I mean, they were roping in other city employees, and it was like constant, and we stood our ground, you know, the whole time. We fought hard, but we all reached out to the FOP, and we got some serious protections on that. And I work with them right now for like a lot of their legislative teams. I work with the FOP now because, you know, I owe them my career. You know, I truly believe that the FOP stopped some shitty small town politicians from derailing, you know, where I was going to go. And it still played a part in me getting my new job now, where it was tough. You know, I looked for 2 years to get out of there. I had tons of interviews and things like that, and it was miserable.
Yeah.
To get out, and then, you know, trying to find a job, and like you hit all the, you know, you know as well as I do. Sometimes you find that place, man, and you know you meet the requirements, you hit all the high notes, and you know you killed that fucking interview, and then you don't get a call back.
Right.
And like a month and a half goes by, and you're like, what the fuck? And then you realize that council member A is like related to council member B over there.
Yep.
And they made a phone call, and so like you were dead. You tried, and you were dead in the water anyway before you even walked in the door.
Yeah. When they tell their officers or their deputies they're going to give you a fair shake, and then you get totally ghosted, and they're posting their open positions, and they've got multiple of them, you know that something took place in the background. But as a former FOP board member, what I will say is that they're the only organization that I know of that is actually putting boots to the ground and kicking up the fire to try to make changes, especially here in Iowa, where they have made so many legislative changes. And the battle they're facing right now is they'll make a change, but like one little word in that legislation will get confused or questioned, and the other side, or those chiefs and those sheriffs who are, like you said, looking to make alliances and better their position, they'll tweak that word and they'll use it in their favor. So then the FOP has to come back the next year and make corrections to that original legislation that they already changed. That's part of the big issue that we have and the big battle that we're fighting. But yeah, like you said, with the small town thing, everyone knows everyone, especially when you start having council members and other department members in a personal relationship with one another. You know, I'm not going to get into details or what, you know, but when that starts happening, the water starts getting even more and more muddy. And for you were on that firing line. I guess the question
the
that
thing is, man, too, like, I didn't add this, like, I didn't hide it, right? Like, again,
Right.
I was in the military, and I knew, you know, having an employee that you begin a romantic relationship with, like a legitimate one, right? I didn't want those rumors that you know, that I partook in
right.
when I was in the military, right? I know how this looks on the other side.
Yeah.
And so even when that conversation occurred of like dating, like not even at the relationship point, like I filled my very good city manager in at the time, like day one. I filled my mayor in day one, like, hey, this is happening. It's going to go out of control. You know, we're not even there yet. We're going to sign documents. You know what I mean? I was like, we're going to do this the right way, and I'm not going to get shot. And that was not the case at all. So, like, you know, I can only imagine what happens if you try to keep things under wrap, because, like, I did everything on the up and up, and I still got stabbed every day.
Right. Well, it's when you go to a call and someone mentions something, and then you have to just try to completely redivert and ignore what was just said, because it's that rumor mill and that gossip mill, and now your daily duties are getting affected because of this, you know, bullcrap that's going on behind you. I guess my question being, though, when I interviewed, and like I said, you went through the ringer. They were lobbing arrows, lobbing bullets at you the whole time before you finally left. But when I went through the interview, it was very, very clear that small town, everyone knows everyone has their hands in everyone else's pockets, and also not really having answers for my questions was very evident, and that's why I reached out to you. What was the change like going from there to the department where you're an admin now, where seemingly it's a complete opposite world?
Oh, it's night and day, you know. And I joke, and I won't say the name of my
Right.
jurisdiction, but you know, I always say it's town PTSD, right?
Yeah.
So like the first 6 months that I was with my new city, right? Like very supportive council, and I, you know, again, I know that can change with an election. I understand that can change, like you change your underwear, right? Like we could do something that sets one off, and they could always hate us. I understand, but you know, coming from what I'm used to having, you know, a council that's like, hey, we hired you for a reason. We want you to do this job, right? That was fucking new to me. And I was like, what? Are you sure? Like, is this a test? What am I doing here?
Am I answering this correctly or incorrectly?
Yeah, and you know, like my mayor, you know, again, we had some serious things happen right off the bat because I have horrible luck, you know, and like my mayor is going out and calling the officers involved, making sure they're okay, calling me, stopping down at the office. You know, I've got council members that come down and just say, hey, I don't want to know anything. I just want to give you a hug. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they actually fucking care. You know, and I told them about a year and a few months after I'd been there, like, I'm sorry if I felt off, right? Like, because I kind of didn't. It wasn't.
Your guard was up.
Like yeah. I told him, I'm like, it's PTSD from my last agency. Like, it really is. I don't like to use that term, but you know, I was so worried that one of you was vying for an angle, right? I was waiting for the day to come to be like, hey, do you remember when I came down and gave you that hug?
Yes.
You know, I really need something from you today.
Yes.
Right? And so, like, that never came, right? They are professionals. They know their lanes, you know? They trust me to run the department, and they don't bother me. And that's huge, right? And I've told them, like, you have no idea how big that is for me and for the officers to just have somebody say, hey, we trust you. If you need something from us, let me know. And they let us go, you know?
And I can't emphasize this enough. Like I said, I did a ride-along, and full disclosure, I had an app in with his department. His guys and his girls love him, and they will sing praises. I didn't find a single bad word about him during that, like, 6 or 8 hour ride-along that I did. And you, as you know, a tenured officer, you can kind of suss some of that stuff out. There was none of that. He works the street. He has our back. He'll take things to the council, and he's transparent, he's open, and he's honest. The whole reason I didn't accept the position or continue with the interview process had to do with distance and logistics. That's all that it was. Otherwise, I would have been there in a heartbeat. Where I want to go, though, is you talked about finding some of those mentors. And I want to know, if you want to shout them out, that's cool, but what were some of the things that they passed on to you after you got through the bullcrap of the fake leaders? What were some of the things they passed on to you that you were able to put into effect that has led to being an admin at a great department now? Another quick break from your boy Turk. Wanted to talk about Imposters on the Throne, Warriors in the Shadows, Exposing Poor Leadership Tactics During Tough Times. It's the book that I wrote, and right now it is on Amazon for the cheapest price that it's ever been. This promotion is going to be ending here soon, so I highly suggest you hop on Amazon, buy the book now, because prices are going to be going up. But Book 2 is currently in the works. So you got to get yourself this thing, read it, and get prepared for book 2. It's coming your way sooner rather than later. I got a life, a lot of things going on. It will be done soon, though, I promise. All right. Hey, yeah, that's it. Back to the show.
Oh, I mean, there's a lot, right? Like, I mean, the obvious one would be my old man. You know, he was a chief deputy. He was in the role of chief deputy for 25 years. And, you know, even when I was a kid, before I was doing this professionally, you know, he was answering the phone. He was getting his gear on at 2 in the morning to go help his guys. Like, and I may not have noticed it then, but, you know, seeing that and then understanding that's how I was in the military too. You know, when I was a supervisor in the military, you know, and that's the expectation too, is like a sergeant or a senior airman, you know, we're going to be out there on the front lines leading, you know, so that those were the backbone. Was definitely my old man, and then some of the good leaders in the military. But when I got out, my biggest one, actually, surprisingly enough, the one that I still talk to this day, and I still ask for advice, is Ryan Evans from Strawberry Point, my first chief. You know, seeing him, the way he would fight for us, and you know, fight for the council, and the way he could talk to people and like, you know, get them to realize that that's what he wanted them to do, but that it was their idea, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
You know, he just had that gift, and he also had and still has a great gift of just not giving a shit, right? and so like, you don't notice those things as a road officer. Like, you just don't, right? Like, you laugh about it and you joke about it, but then when you're in that role, you know, having the ability to be so confident in your decisions and be like, I know I'm right, you know, go fuck yourself. There's the door, and then, you know, where are we going to lunch? You know, being able to have that moxie, that takes time, man. And it takes confidence, and it takes, you know, years of experience to get to that level. And I still talk to him all these days that we have all these sayings, you know, that he used to say, that these Ryanisms that I still live by, you know. And the thing is, like, people sleep on him, and they slept on him a long time. Like, he was in Strawberry because he chose to be there, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, he ran large departments across the country. Like, he ran a SWAT team. Like, he was no Andy Griffith, right? He had just bounced from small town to small town. Like, he chose to be there because it was quieter, and he wanted a break from all the monotony and the monotony of politics and all these things that come with bigger departments. And so, like, you know, sheriffs and other chiefs, man, they sleep on us, right? These small towns. I've gone to these conferences, man. They're like, oh, you only got 4 people or 10 people or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I do the same job you do. I just do it with way less resources. Why are you better than me?
Right.
And so they slept on him for a long time. And I always kind of admire that, right? Like, seeing this guy that was like, no, you're wrong. I'm better than you. And it was just me and him. And, like, you got to respect it, right? Like, he dug those trenches, and he stayed in them, and he fought his battles, and he always won.
Yeah.
And so, like, that was a big one. And then, honestly, you get just as much from watching the fucking shady people, man. Right?
1,000,000%.
You start paying attention on the back end of what some of these chiefs are doing, and how they fucking treat their people, or how they lie to the fucking, straight up lie to the public. Or, like, you know, even in these rural areas, right? We back each other up all the time. And, like, I don't have it now, but I'll tell you, there's an agency in Fayette County that's dirty as shit, man. And it got to the point where I would tell my guys, like, you know, don't leave them hanging. You don't want blood on your hands, but the moment the battle's over, you need to leave.
Yeah.
And let them figure it out, you know what I mean? Like, we'll help a brother, sister out, but we're not going to sit there and drink coffee and have lunch either.
Sure. So there's someone listening to this show right now that's in a position, they're a sergeant, lieutenant, maybe they're that first-time small-town chief that needs to hear advice. I want to know, what are you doing in your position now as a mentor to kind of pass on those leadership responsibilities to the guys and girls underneath you?
The biggest thing is I've noticed that across the way, we are really bad at, like, training our replacement, right? Like, so when I got there, we had 2 sergeants at my current agency that never did, like, a write-up. Like, they were essentially patrol officers with stripes, right? They had no real duties. And when I took over, I was like, yeah, that's not happening, right? If I have a sergeant and a captain, you guys should have roles. You should have outlined duties that you guys can do. And you should be able to fix problems before they get to me, right? Like, that's how this works. That's how it's always worked in the military. That's how I feel like it should work. But the biggest thing I would say from what I've seen with current law enforcement, and like, you get them on the news, they all fucking say it, but like, actually remember where you come from, and,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you, like, nobody in this job is above answering the dog call, right? Nobody is above answering that fucking grass call that we talked about earlier, right? If your guys are working on a report, or you're just in the office, like, go take the fucking call, like, go take the domestic, right? You got to be a chief because you were really good at this job,
Right.
but then we become chiefs and we stop doing the fucking job, or we become sheriffs and we stop doing the job, and we just tell everybody else how to do the job. Well, no offense, like, I don't respect that, right? Like, I want to be out there with my boss, and that's kind of some of the bosses I had were, the ones like, you're not going to kick the door down, I'm going to kick the fucking door down because this is fun as shit, And it's those little moments, right? When you do things like that, when you legitimately, and I fucking stress, legitimately have your officers back until they give you a reason not to, right? And that's what I tell my guys. Like, I will stand on the top of the hill and take the rounds for you guys every day, 24 hours a day, right? Politic-wise, or like actual rounds. Like, I will stand in front of you and I'll fight for you as long as you're doing the right thing, right? If you keep doing the right thing and you can sit in my office and say, this is why I did it, and that makes fucking sense, we're good, right? If you ever do anything, though, fucking illegal or shady, or try to use your position as power, then I will throw you to the wolves, and I'll go to lunch after, right?
Right.
I want you to be good people. I want you to give a shit about the community, and if you do that, I'll take as many bullets and stabs as you want. I'm a big dude. I can take a bunch of rounds. But as leaders, we have to remember where we came from. We have to understand what they're going through. And you're not above taking a fucking call. You're not above taking a case. They're watching you, right?
You've got the same radio and the same computer program they do.
Yeah, exactly. Right? You've got lab, and even if you don't, who gives a shit? We operated without cars, and we wrote fucking press hard 5-copy tickets for how many years, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know how to do this. It's why you're in the position that you're in. Show them.
You nailed a couple, I guess, key terms that I like. You said genuine for one. This whole career field is us sussing out the other person that we're talking to and trying to figure out whether they're being real or not. And for some reason, as soon as people get a position of leadership, they forget that's what we're doing. And they forget that we can tell when they're not being genuine, when they're putting on a fake face, when they've got that political mindset where they're just trying to shake hands and kiss babies, even with you. So the second that you're not genuine is the second that you lose their trust, and it is so difficult to regain that. The other thing that you'd mentioned was that there's no training to supersede or to succeed you. So many people are given a set of keys and just told go after it. And I guess I can't really speak for a lot of other states, but I know that from the several agencies that I've been with or had connections with in Iowa, that's the way that it is from sergeant on up. Here's a set of keys, go get it and figure it out yourself. I've always advocated that a great department is going to have a staffing problem because their guys and their girls are going and taking promoted positions. They're going to lead other departments because they were trained up properly to succeed that chief or that lieutenant or whatever it is.
And that's exactly the way we should be working, right? Like, and there's a lot of factors that go into that. I think, with our current staffing crisis across the state, like, I get it. But like, again, I guess I'm just of a different value where if I train somebody right, and like you said, if they go off to a bigger department to be a lieutenant or a chief or a captain or whatever, like, why is that fucking bad?
Right.
Right? Because if I train them to be like me and my people are happy, then that's like a little piece of me that travels across the state, right? And so it's part of me that's still going out there and like what I think is making things better. So like we should be training our replacements, and like I tell the guys all the time, like, it doesn't even matter if you're a chief. It doesn't matter if you're a captain, a lieutenant, or sergeant. You should always be training your replacement because we also live in a job where more so these days, nothing is guaranteed. I tell my captain, my sergeants all the time, like, I could come to work tomorrow and I still answer calls with you guys. I can take a bullet to the spine and be done, right? Who's going to come in and make sure operations are good until the city decides what they want to do, because we know how government works, and that's going to be a
Right.
6 to 8 month process.
Right.
But there's still going to be calls, and there's still going to be things that need to get done. Right? So if you guys aren't giving up these powers that you guys can figure it out, if a break in the chain happens, then it's just going to be fucking chaos, and things are going to go misstep, and that's where we start getting into trouble. And yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me.
And it is a complete measurement right there. Like you said, if the people are leaving the department to go advance themselves and take positions, that's one thing. That means you're doing your job properly. If you're getting, I'll call it bodies just because it's kind of the way that it is. If you're getting bodies for 6 months to a year that are then turning around and leaving again, that means you have an issue going on within your department that needs to be fixed, and you need to take a serious look in the mirror, an honest reflection, and start to make that change. But luckily, you're not dealing with that because you're doing things right.
Well, and there is too. I mean, yeah, no. I'll tell you, man, some of these younger kids, though, I mean, all they see is dollar signs right now.
Yeah,
That's the other part,
yeah.
right? Like, I know who I am. I know who my guys are. But, man, some of these departments are just throwing so much money that I don't feel bad, right? I've had a lot of guys over the years, and gals, too, that are like, I don't want to leave, but this is, like, huge for my family.
Right.
And I'm like, I respect it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you're going to be happy, but
Yeah.
I respect the decision, right? Like, if you need something, holler, but I think it's a mistake. But yeah, like those metro agencies with a big tax base, man, they're throwing so much money at people that it's sometimes it is hard just to keep the younger crowd a little bit.
And there is the new generation with the 3 to 5 year, like they're in and they're out no matter what they're doing. But like you said, yes, you're going to go make more money, but are you going to be happy? And I think that's something that only tenured officers start to realize is that, hey, sometimes it's better to take a little bit of a pay cut and be happy with where you are because it reflects you and it reflects your family, as opposed to trying to make that bank and getting burned out and getting PTSD and the things that come along with it.
Yeah, just strictly being unhappy and
Yeah. Yes.
And again, speaking from experience, I was there, right? Like my previous marriage, right? Like drowning myself in work to like not be at home. Not being a good dad because of these certain things, because I followed the money,
Yeah.
right? I went for the money, and I was so fucking miserable that like I couldn't deal with what was going on at home, so I just drowned myself even further, and it's not fucking worth it. Like,
No.
it's not worth it at all.
And the thing is, things get dirty and things get muddy, but the spouses, whether it's a guy or a girl, they are going to stay quiet for the longest time because they know some of the battles that you're going through until it gets to the point where they can't take it anymore. Their cup overflows. And so you're living in your own world, making that money and trying to climb that chain and doing all the things that you think are right for you and your family while they're suffering at home constantly 24/7 to the point where it finally blows up. And yeah, you see some marriages that don't last that because of that reason. You've got to keep your eyes open and on a swivel. It's not just self-reflection on have you changed as a person, but is your spouse changing too, and what might be causing that, so you can try to flip the script a little bit.
And I love my job. Like, policing saved my life, right? Like, there was a time getting out of the military, having that tough transition where this is all I wanted to do. And back then, man, you look like me with tattoos and a beard, right? You talk about 15 years ago, 14 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
no one's hiring me.
Right.
Right? So you're coming straight out of 6 years of military police experience, right? I got a AA degree. I got, all these awards and shit, and I'm walking into PDs, man, and they're just throwing up my resume and tossing it because I have a big beard and I got tattoos and I'm a little rough around the edges. Back then, nobody was hiring us. Nobody. I don't care what nobody says. Oh, yeah, no, we weren't. Like, I was unemployed for far too long in that transition. And as I get older, what I realize, like, I love this job, but it's not worth it, right? Like, my family
Right.
is the most important thing. And that was the other thing, taking this bigger job. Like, I made it very clear, if my kids are sick, like, I'm staying home.
Yeah.
And, if they have something going on somewhere, like, I'm going to be there, and work is going to always be number two from here on out. And, that's the other part, too, about finding the right fit, because they were okay with that, right? That's how I knew
Yeah.
I was going to be okay here. Like, it's not just saying, oh, your family's important. and that trickles down. I let my guys do the same thing. Like, I've worked tons of Saturdays and Sundays at 5 in the morning, right? If they got a sick kid at home, I know they're going to cover me later. I know they'll pick up the slack, and I know they're going to appreciate it, so I'll work the shift. I don't give a shit. And plus, like, it sounds funny, but, like, I'm the chief. If I want to go drive around for 4 hours, I can. Who's going to tell me no? If I want to sit in my office and watch an hour of YouTube and drink coffee before I do anything, like, I could do that too, and no one's going to tell me otherwise. You know what I mean? So, like, it's not that big of a deal. And that goes back out to potential leaders, right? Remember what that was like being an officer, like, especially the younger guys, starting a younger family or a younger gal, having that first baby, and then trying to transition yourself back. Like, remember those things, man. Remember where you fucking came from, not just from the street, and how hard it is to have a family.
Right.
Right? And just help your people out. Like, that one Saturday out of a month that they may need off, just pick up the fucking shift.
Right.
Especially if you're in, like, I don't know, like most departments, shit, like, I wish I could get overtime. You know what I mean? Like, if you're telling me I'm helping out a guy and I get a little extra mama don't know money on the back end, like, I'll do that every day of the week. So, like, just, those little moments that come up where you could help a dude out on your department or a gal out, just fucking do it. And you'd be surprised how many people will, like, notice those small things and catch on and actually, like, do good things for you.
Right. And I'll say, since pulling the ripcord and entering the private sector, that's the norm, man. They understand you have a family, you have a life at home, and that this whole thing can stop once you clock out, as opposed to the law enforcement world where, man, it's what have we done for you and why aren't you repaying us? And no, you're not going to go home to your family. You're going to stay here and you're going to cover that overtime and all that other fun stuff. But you've been alluding to it,
as they say, is a wrap for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed what was happening so far, but basically what happened was Davis and I just had a little bit too much fun. We were getting too amped up, talked about a lot of great stuff, and we decided to break this into a 2-part episode. If you guys like this first part, and maybe even if you didn't, I guarantee you're going to like this second part coming up here. A lot of good stuff gets covered, a lot of controversial stuff too. So make sure that you're staying tuned for when that episode comes out. But to do that, you got to do a couple things. Hit the like, hit the share, and the subscribe. That keeps yourself and your friends in the know of when part 2 comes out. Also, if you wouldn't mind, leave a comment, man. Get us out there as much as you can. Putting comments in the video section helps out more than you guys understand. So please help us out there. Like, share, subscribe, comment, follow, all of the things. Please do so. We'll be back soon. Stay safe, warriors. We'll get through this together.